Hello, traveler. Welcome to this quiet sanctuary of shadows and stars. Here, there is no urgency, no destination, only the soft embrace of a night that has been waiting just for you. Chapter 1. Stone Steps in Silence, First Breath of Night. You stand before the entrance to something forgotten. The stone arch rises above you, carved smooth by centuries of mountain wind and rain. Your fingers trace the worn edges where ancient hands once worked, shaping this doorway into permanence. The surface is cool beneath your touch, holding the memory of the day's warmth as night settles around you. The first step waits. Your foot finds the carved depression where countless others have walked before. The stone yields nothing, but accepts your weight with the patience of ages. Each step brings you deeper into the mountain's embrace, where shadows gather like old friends and silence spreads its gentle wings. The air here tastes of stone and time. It moves slowly through these corridors, carrying whispers of something that was, something that remains. Your breath mingles with the mountain's own breathing, steady and sure. The temperature drops with each step downward, wrapping around you like a cool blanket drawn close on a warm night. Above, the last light of evening fades to a distant memory. Stars begin their ancient watch, invisible now, but present always, turning their slow wheel across the sky while you descend into this place of deeper quiet. The entrance behind you grows smaller, a pale rectangle of dying light that frames the world you are leaving behind. Your footsteps echo softly against the walls. The sound travels ahead of you and behind, bouncing gently between stone surfaces that have heard such sounds for longer than anyone remembers. Each footfall becomes part of the mountain's song, a rhythm added to the endless composition of breath and silence, and time flowing like water through these halls. The steps are worn smooth in the center, creating a gentle groove where feet have found their natural path. Your own feet follow this ancient guidance, trusting the wisdom of those who came before. The stone beneath you has been polished by the passage of years and footsteps, creating a surface that reflects the dim light with a soft sheen. Darkness deepens around you, but it is not empty. It breathes with presence, filled with the weight of stone and space and possibility. Your eyes adjust slowly, finding shapes in the shadows, learning to see what little light remains. The darkness here is different from the darkness of night above ground. It has substance, texture, a quality that speaks of depth and age and patient waiting. The walls press close on either side, near enough to touch with outstretched arms, yet never cramped or confining. They frame your passage without constraining it, creating a path that feels both intimate and vast. The stone here bears the marks of careful shaping, evidence of hands that worked with patience and skill to create something beautiful from the mountain's bones. Each step carries you further from the world of day and closer to something else entirely. Time moves differently here, measured not in hours or minutes, but in heartbeats and breaths, and the gentle percussion of footsteps on stone. The urgency of daylight fades, replaced by something deeper and more enduring. The air tastes different now, flavored with minerals and moisture drawn from deep places in the earth. It fills your lungs with each breath, clean and cool and somehow nourishing. There is no dust here, no staleness. The mountain breathes through these passages, drawing fresh air down from the heights and exhaling it slowly through hidden channels carved by time and water. Your hand trails along the wall as you walk, reading the story written in stone. The surface changes texture occasionally, smooth in some places, rough in others, marking different periods of construction or different qualities of the mountain stone. Here and there, your fingers find shallow depressions, carved patterns worn nearly smooth by age, hints of decoration or meaning that time has softened into suggestion. The steps continue downward, each one slightly different from the last, shaped by the mountain's contours and the builder's adaptation to the natural form. Some steps are wider, some narrower, some slightly higher or lower, creating a rhythm that is almost musical in its variation. Your pace adjusts naturally to this rhythm, finding the flow that feels right for this place and this moment. Behind you, the last trace of surface light disappears entirely. You are committed now to this descent, to this journey into the mountain's heart. There is no sense of claustrophobia, only a gentle closing in of space that feels protective rather than confining. The mountain embraces you, drawing you deeper into its ancient silence. The temperature stabilizes as you descend, settling into a coolness that is neither warm nor cold but perfectly comfortable against your skin. This is the mountain's own temperature, unchanged by seasons or weather, constant as the stone itself. Your body adjusts to this new environment, finding its own balance in this place between places. Sound changes as you move deeper. Your footsteps still echo, but the echoes come back different now, colored by the shape of spaces you cannot yet see. The walls carry sound in new ways, creating harmonies and resonances that speak of chambers and corridors, spreading out beyond your immediate path. You are entering a larger space, though the passage itself remains narrow and intimate. The darkness ahead is not empty but full of potential. Each step reveals a little more of the path, just enough to guide your feet while leaving the greater mystery intact. This is not a place to be conquered or understood all at once, but one to be experienced slowly, step by step, breath by breath. Your breathing settles into the rhythm of your walking, deep and steady and peaceful. The mountain's silence wraps around each breath, cushioning sound and creating a sense of profound quiet that penetrates to your bones. This is silence with weight and presence, not the absence of sound, but the presence of deep peace. The stone beneath your feet warms slightly with each step, responding to the pressure and movement of your passage. It seems to welcome each footfall, accepting your weight and your presence as natural parts of its long existence. You are temporary here, a brief visitor in the mountain's endless day, but you are also part of something larger, connected to all who have walked this path before. The walls seem to pulse gently with their own inner life, breathing with the mountain's slow rhythm. Stone, you realize, is not dead but sleeping, dreaming the long dreams of geological time, while hosting the brief dreams of creatures like yourself who pass through its halls, seeking something they cannot name. Each step takes you deeper into this dreaming, deeper into the mountain's patient embrace, deeper into the silence that waits at the heart of all things. Chapter 2. Stone Corridors and Whispered Light. The corridor stretches ahead of you, its stone walls rising into shadow above your head. Here the silence deepens, becoming something you can almost touch, something that wraps around your shoulders like a familiar cloak. Your footsteps echo softly against the carved surfaces, each sound returning to you changed, gentler, as if the mountain itself has softened the harsh edges of noise. The walls are covered in patterns that emerge from the stone itself, not carved but grown, as if the mountain dreamed these designs into being over countless years of patient waiting. Your fingers trace along the cool surface as you walk, feeling the subtle textures that speak of time beyond human measure. The stone is smooth in some places, rough in others, telling its story through touch rather than words. Light filters down from somewhere far above, pale and golden, casting everything in soft amber tones. It moves slightly, this light, swaying as if touched by breezes you cannot feel. The illumination pools in certain corners, gathers along certain curves of wall, creating islands of gentle brightness in the ocean of shadow that fills these halls. You pause beside one such pool of light, watching how it plays across the stone floor. The patterns shift slowly, hypnotically, drawing your eyes into their gentle dance. There is something peaceful about this movement, something that asks nothing of you except that you be present, that you allow yourself to witness this quiet beauty that has persisted here long before your arrival and will continue long after your departure. The air moves differently here in the corridor, flowing with purpose through passages you cannot see. It carries with it the scent of stone and time, of earth deep beneath the surface, of places where water has worn smooth channels through solid rock over millennia of patient persistence. You breathe this air and feel it fill your lungs with something more than oxygen, something that speaks of endurance and quiet strength. Your steps resume their rhythm, slower now, matching the pulse of this ancient place. Each footfall sends small vibrations through the stone, and you sense that these tremors travel far beyond where you can perceive them, carrying news of your passage to distant chambers and forgotten halls. The mountain knows you are here, accepts your presence as part of its endless conversation with time. The corridor curves gently to the right, revealing new perspectives on familiar elements. Light and shadow rearrange themselves around your changing position, creating fresh patterns on walls and floor. What seemed solid and unchanging moments before now reveals itself to be fluid, responsive, alive in ways that exist beyond the usual definitions of life. A small alcove appears in the wall beside you, carved with the same patient precision that marks everything in this place. Inside it sits a simple stone bowl, its interior polished to a mirror smoothness that reflects the gentle light. There is no water in the bowl, yet it seems to hold something precious nonetheless, something you cannot name but can sense, hovering just beyond perception. You rest your hand on the rim of the bowl, feeling its perfect circular edge, its balanced weight. Someone long ago shaped this stone with careful hands and patient tools, creating something both functional and beautiful, something meant to serve a purpose that time has gently obscured. The bowl remains, though its original meaning has faded into the mountain's long memory. The light grows slightly dimmer as you continue, not darker but softer, as if the mountain is slowly drawing you into deeper levels of quiet. Your eyes adjust without effort, finding new details in the reduced illumination. The stone walls reveal subtle variations in color and texture that were invisible in brighter light, patterns within patterns that speak of the mountain's complex history. Sound behaves strangely here, bending around corners and filtering through cracks in ways that create an acoustic environment unlike any you have known. Your breathing seems amplified at times, then muffled, as if the corridor itself is breathing alongside you, matching your rhythm with its own ancient respiration. The echo of your footsteps arrives at your ears from unexpected directions, creating a gentle symphony of presence and memory. A draft touches your face, cool and clean, carrying with it hints of larger spaces that lie ahead. The air moves with intention here, following paths worn by centuries of patient flow. It speaks of chambers where stillness has accumulated like snow, of passages where silence has grown thick and comfortable, of places where time moves differently than it does in the world above. The walls begin to show new characteristics as you progress, small variations that suggest you are moving from one section of the sanctuary to another without any clear demarcation. The stone here bears different markings, different textures, as if each generation of builders brought their own vision to the continuing work of creation. Yet everything flows together seamlessly, part of a larger design that encompasses all individual contributions. You notice alcoves appearing more frequently now, each containing its own arrangement of simple objects. A piece of polished wood rests in one, its grain flowing like water frozen in time. Another holds a cluster of small stones, each one worn smooth by handling, each one carrying the imprint of countless touches. These objects seem to serve no practical purpose, yet they radiate a sense of importance, of meaning that exists beyond utility. The temperature remains constant here, neither warm nor cool, but perfectly balanced in a way that makes you forget your body's usual concerns with comfort. The mountain maintains its own climate in these inner passages, creating conditions that support contemplation rather than action, reflection rather than movement. Yet movement continues to feel natural, necessary, as if walking itself is a form of meditation in this place. Your hand trails along the wall as you walk, reading the stone's story through touch. Here, a vein of different mineral creates a line of contrasting texture. There, a slight depression speaks of some ancient purpose, now forgotten. The wall becomes a text written in stone, telling stories in a language older than words, stories that your fingers understand, even when your mind cannot translate their meaning. The light continues its gentle variations, bright in some passages, dim in others, creating a rhythm of illumination that guides your progress through the corridor. You realize that this is not random but carefully planned, designed to create experiences of revelation and mystery, moments of clarity followed by peaceful obscurity. The builders understood something about the relationship between light and consciousness, between visibility and understanding. Sound continues to weave its subtle patterns around your journey. The whisper of air through hidden openings, the distant drip of water in unseen chambers, the soft percussion of your own movement, all combine to create an acoustic environment that seems alive yet utterly peaceful. These sounds do not disturb the silence but enhance it, giving it texture and depth. As you walk, you begin to understand that this corridor is not simply a passage between destinations, but a destination in itself. Each step reveals new aspects of the mountain's patient artistry, new perspectives on the relationship between stone and space, between light and shadow, between movement and stillness. The journey becomes the purpose, the walking becomes the prayer, the presence becomes the teaching. Chapter 3. Inner Garden, Whispered Waters. The corridor begins to widen almost imperceptibly, the walls gradually drawing apart as you continue forward. The change is so subtle that you barely notice it at first, but slowly you become aware that the space around you is expanding, breathing outward like a gentle exhalation. The stone floor beneath your feet remains smooth and cool, but now it carries new sounds, the faintest whisper of movement that suggests water somewhere ahead. The air changes too, becoming softer, more humid, carrying scents that speak of growing things and moisture. There is something green in the darkness ahead, something alive that waits patiently in the mountain's heart. Your footsteps continue their quiet rhythm, but now they seem to echo differently, as if the space ahead is larger, more open, ready to receive both sound and silence. A few more steps, and you begin to see it, the gentle gleam of water catching what little light filters through this place. The corridor has opened into a chamber, not vast but spacious enough to hold its breath, to create a pause in the mountain's careful meditation. Here, in this forgotten place, someone long ago created a garden. It is not a garden as you might imagine in the bright world above, but something more subtle, more patient. Stone planters line the edges of the space, filled with earth that has waited centuries for rain that comes only through hidden channels in the rock. Plants grow here, but slowly, quietly, adapted to the dim light and careful moisture that the mountain provides. You step into this space and feel the change immediately. The air moves differently here, stirred by the presence of water and the gentle breathing of plants that have learned to live in near darkness. There is a fountain somewhere, its voice barely more than a whisper, a soft murmuring that speaks of water moving over stone, finding its way through carefully carved channels. The light in this chamber comes from sources you cannot quite identify, filtering through openings high above, reflecting off water and wet stone to create a soft, ever-shifting illumination. Shadows dance gently on the walls, cast by plants whose forms have grown strange and beautiful in this underground twilight. You walk slowly around the perimeter of this space, your feet finding a path that seems worn by countless others who have made this same quiet pilgrimage. The stone beneath you is different here, smoother in some places where water has touched it over the ages, slightly rough in others where mineral deposits have built up like the patient thoughts of stone. The plants that grow here are unlike anything in the world above. Their leaves have grown broad and pale, reaching for every photon of the precious light that finds its way into this chamber. Some climb the walls, their tendrils finding purchase in the joints between stones, creating living tapestries that shift almost imperceptibly in the gentle air currents. You pause beside one of the planters, and the scent rises to meet you, earthy and green, the smell of growth continuing despite the absence of sun, despite the passage of time that has forgotten this place exists. These plants have adapted, evolved, become something new in their patient isolation, yet they remain essentially themselves, still reaching toward light, still breathing with the mountain's rhythm. The sound of water grows slightly clearer as you move deeper into the chamber. It is not the rush of a stream or the splash of a waterfall, but something more intimate, more personal. Water moving drop by drop, trickle by trickle, finding its way through stone channels that were carved with infinite care by hands that understood the music water makes when it moves slowly. You discover the source near the center of the chamber, a small pool fed by water that emerges from a crack in the wall so narrow it seems impossible that any flow could pass through it. Yet the water comes, patient and persistent, filling the pool drop by drop, overflowing in a thin stream that disappears again into channels carved in the floor, beginning a journey deeper into the mountain's mysteries. The pool reflects what light there is, creating a mirror that shows you fragments of the chamber above, pieces of stone and plant life wavering gently with each drop that disturbs the surface. You find yourself drawn to watch this surface, mesmerized by the tiny ripples that spread outward from each impact, circles within circles expanding until they touch the edges and disappear. Around the pool, the stone has been carved with simple patterns, spirals and flowing lines that echo the movement of water, the growth of plants, the patient turning of seasons that continue even here in this timeless place. Your fingers trace these patterns, feeling the smoothness where countless others have done the same, wearing the stone surely as water wears stone, through gentleness and time. The plants closest to the water have grown most lush, their leaves broader, their stems stronger. They lean toward the pool as if in gratitude, as if in recognition of the gift that keeps them alive in this buried place. Some trail their leaves in the water, creating gentle movements that catch what light there is and scatter it in patterns across the stone floor. You sit on the edge of the pool, your reflection joining the fragments of light and shadow that play across its surface. The water continues its quiet conversation, drop by drop, each impact creating a small percussion that joins with the whisper of air through unseen passages, the gentle rustle of leaves responding to currents you can barely feel. In this place, time moves differently. The urgency that drives the world above has no meaning here. The plants grow according to their own internal schedule. The water flows at its own pace, and the mountain breathes with a rhythm that was ancient when the first human footstep echoed in these corridors. You close your eyes and listen to the symphony of small sounds that fills this chamber. The drip of water, the soft sighing of air through stone passages, the almost inaudible whisper of leaves touching leaves. These sounds do not compete for attention but weave together into something that is less than silence but more than noise, a presence that fills the space without overwhelming it. The temperature in this chamber is neither warm nor cool but something perfectly balanced, as if the mountain itself has learned to create the exact conditions needed for life to persist in this hidden place. The humidity rises from the water and the breathing of plants, creating an atmosphere that feels alive, patient, endlessly gentle. When you open your eyes again, the chamber seems somehow larger, as if your presence here has awakened something that was sleeping, some awareness that recognizes the continuation of an ancient pattern. You are not the first to sit beside this pool, not the first to trace these carved patterns, not the first to find peace in the quiet conversation between water and stone. The builders of this place understood something about the relationship between human consciousness and the presence of growing things, between the sound of water and the quieting of thoughts that chase themselves in circles. They created this chamber not just as a garden but as a medicine, a place where the spirit could find the same patient growth that the plants demonstrate, the same persistent gentleness that the water embodies. Chapter 4. The Hall of Pillars. You rise from beside the pool, your fingers still carrying the memory of cool stone and carved symbols. The path ahead draws you deeper into the sanctuary, away from the gentle murmur of water and growing things, toward spaces that hold different qualities of silence. The corridor widens gradually as you walk, stone beneath your feet worn smooth by countless footsteps that came before yours. The walls begin to curve outward, and you sense that you are approaching something vast, something that will require your eyes to adjust not just to different light, but to a different scale of existence. The first pillar appears in your peripheral vision, like a tree trunk glimpsed at the edge of a forest. Then another, then more, until you realize you have stepped into a hall so large that the far end disappears into gentle shadow, and the ceiling rises so high that it seems to merge with darkness itself. These pillars are not mere supports, but monuments to patience. Each one is carved from a single piece of mountain stone, their surfaces worn to a texture that invites touch. Your hand finds one as you pass, and the stone is neither warm nor cold, but something more fundamental than temperature. It carries the weight of centuries in its grain, the slow accumulation of moments like this one, when someone paused to feel the substance of permanence beneath their palm. The hall breathes around you with a rhythm so slow, it takes time to notice. Air moves between the pillars in currents you can barely feel, stirring nothing, disturbing nothing, simply flowing as if the space itself inhales and exhales on a cycle measured not in seconds but in seasons. Between the pillars, shafts of dim light fall from openings far above, creating pools of soft illumination that shift almost imperceptibly as the night progresses. In these pools, motes of dust drift like tiny planets in slow orbit, each speck caught in its own unhurried dance through space and time. Your footsteps echo differently here than they did in the narrower passages. The sound spreads and softens, absorbed by the vast volume of air and the patient surfaces of stone. Each step creates not just sound, but presence, a small declaration of existence that the hall receives without judgment, holds without resistance, then releases into the greater silence. The pillars are spaced with such precision that walking between them creates a natural rhythm. 3 steps, a pillar. 3 steps, another pillar. The repetition becomes hypnotic, a meditation made of movement and stone. Your body finds this rhythm without effort, as if the builders understood something about human pace and breathing that transcends conscious thought. Some of the pillars bear carvings so subtle they emerge only as your eyes adjust to the interplay of light and shadow. Spirals that seem to grow from the stone itself. Patterns that might be leaves or waves or the paths of wind made visible. Symbols that suggest meaning without insisting on interpretation. Beautiful enough to contemplate, ambiguous enough to allow your mind to rest rather than work. The scale of this place creates its own form of quietude. Your thoughts, which might otherwise turn inward in smaller spaces, expand to fill the available volume. Worries that seemed important moments ago dissolve into the vastness, becoming as inconsequential as the dust motes that drift through the light. The hall teaches perspective simply by existing, demonstrating the relationship between human concerns and deeper measures of time and space. High above, barely visible in the furthest reaches of shadow, you catch glimpses of carved vaulting that supports the weight of mountain stone with an elegance that makes engineering indistinguishable from art. The builders of this place understood that necessity could be beautiful, that function could be transcendent, that the purely practical act of holding up a ceiling could become a form of prayer made manifest in stone. You pause beside a pillar whose surface catches the light in a way that reveals the grain of the original stone, the layers of sediment and pressure that formed it long before human hands shaped it into its current purpose. The pillar contains its own history, compressed into readable strata. Mountain streams that carved valleys, seas that rose and fell, forests that grew and died and became fossil impressions that your fingers can trace in the darkness. The silence here is not empty but full, layered with the presence of all who have walked this path before you. Footsteps worn into stone, breath absorbed by air that has circulated through these spaces for generations. The accumulated weight of human presence, so light individually, so substantial in sum. You are walking through a library of moments, each pillar a volume in a collection that documents not events but states of being, not history but consciousness itself. The temperature remains constant as you move deeper into the hall, neither rising nor falling but maintaining that perfect balance you first noticed beside the pool. The mountain has learned to breathe in a way that creates ideal conditions for contemplation, for the kind of presence that requires neither effort nor intention but simply the willingness to exist within a space designed for exactly this quality of being. Your pace slows naturally as the hall reveals more of itself. There is no hurry here, no destination that requires reaching. The pillars create corridors that lead in multiple directions, each path equally valid, each choice equally without consequence. You can walk for what feels like hours without needing to arrive anywhere specific, without needing to accomplish anything beyond the simple act of being present within this constructed vastness. The light shifts almost imperceptibly as you walk, suggesting passage of time without marking it precisely. Shadows lengthen and shorten in cycles so gradual they register more as feeling than observation. The hall exists in its own temporal dimension, where minutes and hours become arbitrary measurements applied to something that operates on geological time. Between your footsteps, in the spaces where sound fades into the greater quiet, you become aware of your own heartbeat, your own breathing, the small sounds of existence that usually disappear beneath the noise of daily life. The hall's acoustics make you aware of yourself as a living thing moving through space, neither insignificant nor important, but simply present, one more element in the complex harmony of stone and air and light. The pillars seem to breathe with you, their surfaces expanding and contracting in rhythms too slow to see but somehow perceptible to deeper senses. You begin to understand that this place was designed not just for shelter or gathering, but for a specific form of consciousness, a way of being that requires both solitude and connection, both individual presence and awareness of something larger than the individual self. As you continue walking, the hall reveals new configurations of space and light. alcoves between pillars where stone benches wait in patient readiness, recesses carved with the same subtle artistry as the pillar surfaces, suggesting places for rest or contemplation, or simply the pleasure of sitting within this carefully crafted relationship between human scale and architectural vastness. The air carries scents so faint they register more as memory than sensation. Stone dust, worn smooth by time, the ghost of incense burned decades or centuries ago. Something that might be the mineral essence of the mountain itself, brought to awareness by the perfect stillness that allows such subtle fragrances to persist and accumulate rather than dissipate. Your journey through this hall of pillars has no fixed endpoint, no moment when exploration becomes complete. Each pillar reveals new details as you pass. Each perspective between the columns creates new relationships of light and shadow, new configurations of space that invite continued wandering. The hall teaches patience by example, demonstrating that some experiences cannot be rushed, some forms of beauty cannot be grasped, but only inhabited, some kinds of peace cannot be achieved but only received. Chapter 5. Small Chambers. The hallway beyond the pillared hall grows narrower, more intimate. You move through passages that feel designed for solitary footsteps, for quiet contemplation away from the grandeur of public spaces. Here the architecture speaks in whispers rather than declarations, offering rooms and alcoves scaled to individual human presence rather than collective gathering. Your feet carry you past doorways that open onto small chambers carved directly from the living rock. Each space holds its own quality of silence, its own particular relationship with shadow and the faintest traces of light that filter through from distant sources. Some rooms contain simple stone furniture, benches and shelves that emerge from the walls themselves as if the mountain had chosen to offer its own hospitality. In one chamber, you pause beside a low stone table where the surface bears the subtle impressions of daily use. Not dramatic markings or deliberate carvings, but the gentle wear patterns that accumulate when human hands rest repeatedly in the same places, when the same rituals of eating or writing or simple contemplation occur day after day across seasons and years. The table holds memory in its polished surfaces, stories told not in words but in the microscopic evidence of lives quietly lived. The air in these smaller spaces carries different textures than the grand halls behind you. More concentrated, more personal. You breathe the accumulated presence of individuals who once moved through these same passages, who chose these same alcoves for rest or reflection. Their presence lingers not as ghosts or spirits, but as subtle alterations in the quality of attention that these spaces seem to hold. You discover chambers where niches in the walls once held personal belongings. Empty now, but shaped with such care that they suggest the importance of small treasures, private objects that marked the boundary between the communal life of the sanctuary and the irreducible privacy of individual experience. Each niche carved to fit specific purposes, specific shapes, as if the stone itself had been taught to understand the geometry of personal attachment. Moving deeper into this network of intimate spaces, you encounter rooms where the walls bear the faintest traces of color. Not painted decorations, but the ghost impressions of fabrics that once hung here, pigments so subtle they register more as variations in the stone's natural tone than as deliberate ornament. These chambers once held the warmth of textiles, the soft boundaries that transform carved rock into livable space. Your footsteps echo differently here, absorbed more quickly by walls that seem to welcome sound rather than amplify it. The acoustic intimacy draws you into awareness of your own breathing, the small sounds of fabric against stone, the whisper of air moving through these carefully proportioned spaces. You become part of the chamber's sonic environment, rather than an intruder upon its silence. In one room, you find a stone basin carved into the wall at precisely the right height for washing hands or face. The basin's interior bears the smooth polish that comes only from countless repetitions of the same gentle action. Water once filled this space regularly, part of daily routines now dissolved into time, but commemorated by the basin's patient readiness to serve again whenever called upon. The passage continues, revealing chambers that suggest different aspects of private life. A room with stone shelves that once held scrolls or books, the shelves carved with subtle curves that would have cradled written materials against the mountain's moisture. Another space with a raised sleeping area carved as a single piece with the floor, creating a bed that is simultaneously furniture and architecture, as permanent and reliable as the stone beneath your feet. You notice how each chamber offers its own particular quality of refuge. Some face inward toward the mountain's heart, creating spaces of complete enclosure and security. Others include subtle openings that frame distant views or allow the circulation of air, maintaining connection with the larger sanctuary while preserving the essential privacy that makes these spaces homes rather than merely rooms. The temperature varies subtly between chambers, some retaining the mountain's deep coolness, while others seem to hold traces of warmth from sources no longer apparent. These microclimates create unique atmospheres, suggesting that the sanctuary's builders understood how different temperaments require different environmental support, how true sanctuary accommodates individual needs rather than imposing universal solutions. Your journey through these intimate spaces occurs without hurry or specific destination. Each chamber invites pause, contemplation of how human lives once filled these carefully crafted volumes. You move as if following the ghost paths of daily routines, morning preparations and evening reflections, moments of solitude chosen rather than imposed, privacy that served restoration rather than isolation. The stones here bear witness to the accumulation of small choices and quiet habits that comprise most human experience. Not the dramatic moments that histories record, but the daily return to familiar spaces, the comfort of known proportions and trusted surfaces, the peace that comes from having a place specifically one's own within a larger community of shared purpose and mutual care. Chapter 6. Books and Scrolls, the Quiet Sleep of Knowledge. You continue along the mountain pathways within the sanctuary, your footsteps carrying you toward chambers that seem to breathe with accumulated wisdom. The air grows heavier here, dense with the particular stillness that settles around preserved thoughts, around knowledge held in patient suspension. Stone archways lead you into spaces where countless volumes once rested in careful arrangement. The shelves carved directly into living rock stretch upward into shadows, their surfaces bearing the subtle impressions of books and scrolls that remained here for centuries. You can almost see the careful placement, the reverent handling of each text, the daily rituals of those who tended these collections. Your fingers trace the smooth stone shelves, feeling the slight depressions where wooden supports once held precious manuscripts. The rock itself seems to remember the weight of knowledge, the gentle pressure of volumes that contained the accumulated understanding of generations. These impressions speak of a civilization that valued the preservation of thought above material wealth. The temperature in these chambers remains remarkably stable, the mountain's natural insulation having protected fragile materials from the extremes that destroy so much human learning. You breathe in air that once carried the scent of aged parchment, of ink made from mountain minerals, of the subtle oils used to preserve delicate pages against time's inevitable passage. Narrow windows set high in the walls filter pale light into reading alcoves carved into the stone. These intimate spaces still hold the shape of solitary study, of minds bent over texts in quiet concentration. You can imagine the soft scratch of reed pens taking notes, the gentle rustle of pages turned with practiced care, the deep satisfaction of understanding slowly unfolding. The acoustics of these library chambers create a particular quality of silence, one that seems to absorb sound rather than echo it. Your movements here become naturally quieter, more considered, as if the space itself teaches appropriate reverence for the knowledge it once contained. This is a silence that invites contemplation rather than demanding it. Stone lecterns remain positioned throughout the space, their surfaces worn smooth by countless hours of use. Books once rested here at perfect angles for reading, their pages held open by weights crafted specifically for this purpose. The lecterns face toward the natural light sources, positioned with understanding of how human eyes work best, how comfort supports comprehension. You discover reading chairs carved directly from the mountain stone, their surfaces softened by cushions whose outlines remain impressed in the rock. These seats were shaped to support long hours of study, their proportions calculated to reduce fatigue while maintaining alertness. The builders understood that the body's comfort directly influences the mind's capacity for sustained attention. Small side tables near each reading station once held oil lamps, their surfaces marked with the circular stains of countless hours of illumination. The arrangement suggests reading that continued well into the evening hours, scholarly pursuits that followed natural rhythms rather than artificial schedules. Learning here flowed with the mountain's quiet pace. Alcoves, designed for specific collections, create intimate environments within the larger space. Some were clearly intended for scientific texts, their shelves bearing measurements and careful organization systems. Others held philosophical works, their arrangement suggesting cross-reference and comparative study. Still others contained what must have been artistic or creative writings, their placement near windows indicating appreciation for inspiration drawn from natural beauty. The organization systems remain partially visible in the stone arrangements. Classification methods that grouped related knowledge, pathways that guided readers from fundamental concepts to advanced understanding, connections that revealed the relationships between different areas of learning. This was a collection designed not just for storage, but for genuine education. You notice how the chambers connect to one another through carefully planned passages, creating a flow that encourages exploration while maintaining the focused atmosphere necessary for serious study. Readers could move easily between related subjects, following intellectual curiosities as they arose, while still finding spaces for deep concentration when needed. The walls bear traces of what were once reading schedules, community guidelines that ensured fair access to precious texts while protecting them from damage. These were not rules imposed from above, but agreements reached by a community of scholars who understood the value of what they shared. The markings suggest a culture where learning was both individual pursuit and collective responsibility. Small chambers adjacent to the main library spaces contained copying desks, places where scribes worked to duplicate important texts. The stone surfaces still show the impressions of writing boards, the careful measurements that ensured consistent margins and line spacing. This was preservation work conducted with the understanding that knowledge must be multiplied to survive. You find traces of what were once comfortable corners for informal discussion, spaces where readers could share discoveries without disturbing others engaged in solitary study. The acoustics here differ subtly from the reading areas, designed to contain conversation while preventing it from carrying to spaces dedicated to silence. The lighting systems throughout these chambers demonstrate sophisticated understanding of how different activities require different illumination. Natural light for detailed examination of illustrations, focused lamplight for intensive reading, softer ambient lighting for reflection and note-taking. Each area was designed with specific purposes in mind. Storage systems for writing materials remain built into the walls, compartments that once held inks, pens, measuring tools, and binding supplies. These provisions indicate that the library was not merely a repository, but an active workspace where knowledge was not only preserved, but actively expanded through ongoing scholarship and commentary. Your exploration reveals the remains of environmental controls, systems designed to maintain optimal conditions for manuscript preservation, ventilation channels that provided fresh air without creating damaging drafts, moisture barriers that protected against the mountain's natural dampness, temperature regulation that prevented the extremes that caused paper and ink to deteriorate. The deeper chambers contain what were clearly the most precious collections, texts that required additional protection and controlled access. These spaces feel more intimate, more reverential, as if they contained the foundational works upon which this entire intellectual tradition was built. The stone here seems to hold an even deeper silence. Chapter 7. Deep Silence, Inner Peace. You move deeper into these most sacred chambers, where silence has weight and substance. The stone beneath your feet absorbs each footfall completely, as if the mountain itself has learned to hold sound within its depths. Here, in these innermost sanctuaries, the air carries a quality of stillness that seems to have accumulated over centuries. The walls around you curve gently, their surfaces worn smooth by countless hands that once traced these passages in reverent exploration. Dim light filters through carefully placed openings, creating pools of soft illumination that shift almost imperceptibly as time moves forward. Each breath you take feels deeper here, more complete, as if the space itself encourages a slower rhythm of being. Stone alcoves line these deeper chambers, each one carved with the same patient precision that marks every surface in this forgotten place. Within these recesses, shadows gather like gentle thoughts, neither harsh nor demanding, simply present in their quiet way. The temperature remains constant, a perfect balance that requires no adjustment from your body, no conscious awareness of comfort or discomfort. Your footsteps create the softest whisper of sound, a rhythm that matches the quiet beating of your heart. The passage curves ahead, leading you further into chambers where the mountain's embrace feels more complete. Stone columns rise around you, their surfaces bearing the faintest traces of carved symbols that time has worn to gentle suggestions rather than bold declarations. The air moves here with the slowest circulation, carrying with it the faint essence of stone and age, of spaces that have known only contemplation and peace. No urgency has ever touched these halls. No crisis has ever demanded quick movement or raised voices. The very architecture speaks of patience, of understanding that all things unfold in their proper time. Light fixtures crafted from the same stone as the walls provide illumination that never flickers, never dims, maintaining a consistent glow that asks nothing of your eyes but acceptance. This steady radiance reveals surfaces that curve and flow like water, frozen in perfect stillness, creating an environment where sharp edges and harsh transitions have no place. The chambers expand around you, opening into spaces where the ceiling rises higher, where the sense of enclosure gives way to something more expansive while maintaining the same profound quiet. Stone benches appear along the walls, their surfaces worn to perfect smoothness by countless hours of peaceful occupation. Each bench faces inward toward the center of the space, creating concentric circles of contemplation. Here, in these deepest chambers, questions arise without the need for answers. What draws the mind toward stillness? Whether silence has its own voice? How peace settles into spaces that welcome it completely? These wonderings emerge naturally from the environment itself, flowing like the gentle air that circulates through these halls. The stone floor beneath you bears the faintest patterns, spirals and curves that guide your steps without directing them, suggestions rather than commands. Following these subtle guides, you find yourself moving in slow arcs through the chamber, each turn revealing new perspectives on the same essential tranquility. Recessed areas in the walls hold nothing now but shadows and the memory of purpose. These spaces once contained objects of contemplation, items that focused thought and encouraged deeper reflection. The emptiness they hold now seems as meaningful as any presence, a demonstration that peace requires no external support, no tools or aids beyond the simple willingness to be still. The circulation of air here follows patterns established by the mountain itself, gentle currents that have learned to move without disturbance, without creating the slightest draft or variation in temperature. This natural ventilation system speaks of understanding, of builders who worked with the mountain rather than against it, who sought to enhance rather than impose. Your breathing naturally adjusts to match the rhythm of this space, becoming deeper and more regular without conscious effort. The chambers seem to encourage this synchronization, this harmony between your inner rhythms and the pulse of the sanctuary itself. Each exhalation releases tension you didn't realize you carried. Each inhalation draws in the profound calm that saturates every molecule of air. Stone archways lead from one chamber to another, their openings framed by the same careful craftsmanship that marks every surface here. Passing through these thresholds feels like moving between different qualities of silence, each space holding its own particular depth of quiet. The transitions are so gradual that you barely notice them, like clouds shifting imperceptibly across a windless sky. In the centermost chamber, a single stone circle marks the floor, its boundary traced in lines so subtle they might be shadows or tricks of the gentle light. Standing within this circle, you feel the weight of the mountain above, the solid earth beneath, the perfect balance of forces that keeps this space suspended in eternal calm. The walls here rise without urgency, their surfaces catching and holding the soft light in ways that create depth without shadow, dimension without contrast. Every angle, every curve, every subtle variation in the stone seems designed to promote the deepest possible tranquility, to remove every element that might disturb or distract. Time moves differently in these deepest chambers, not slower or faster, but with a quality that makes measurement irrelevant. Moments extend and contract according to their own natural rhythm, unburdened by the need to conform to any external schedule or expectation. The concept of duration dissolves into the more fundamental experience of simply being present. The silence here is complete yet somehow alive, filled with the presence of peace rather than the absence of sound. This quality of quietude seems to have its own consciousness, its own awareness of the role it plays in creating this sanctuary for contemplation. It welcomes you without greeting, supports you without effort, asks nothing while offering everything. Your journey through these chambers becomes a meditation in itself, each step a moment of mindfulness, each breath an act of conscious participation in the profound stillness that defines this place. The mountain holds you gently, the stone supports you completely. The silence embraces you with perfect understanding. Chapter 8. Moonlit Terraces, Ancient Gardens. From these deepest chambers, your path begins to curve upward once again, following passages that seem to breathe with the mountain's own slow rhythm. The stone beneath your feet carries you forward through corridors that gradually widen, walls that slowly draw apart, ceiling that rises incrementally toward spaces filled with different qualities of darkness. The air changes as you walk, becoming lighter with each step, touched by something that speaks of open sky and distant horizons. Cool drafts move through these upper passages, carrying scents of night-blooming flowers and dew settled on stone surfaces warmed by day and cooled by evening's gentle touch. You emerge onto a broad terrace carved directly from the mountain's living rock. Here, the sanctuary opens itself to the vast night sky, creating a space where interior and exterior merge in perfect harmony. Ancient stonework frames the heavens, and the moon, hanging full and luminous above, bathes everything in silver light that transforms the familiar into something timelessly beautiful. The terrace extends in measured proportions, its surface worn smooth by countless feet that have walked this same path across centuries of quiet nights. Low walls define the edges, carved with patterns that catch moonlight and cast intricate shadows, creating a shifting tapestry of light and dark that moves with the moon's slow journey across the sky. Gardens spread below in carefully tended terraces, each level flowing naturally into the next. Paths wind between plantings that seem to glow in the lunar illumination, leaves and petals touched with silver, stems rising toward starlight with graceful certainty. The arrangement speaks of deep understanding between human intention and natural growth, a collaboration that has produced beauty requiring no maintenance beyond gentle attention. Water moves through these gardens in channels carved from stone, following routes that create the softest possible sound, a whisper of movement that blends with night breezes and the distant settling of stone. Small pools reflect fragments of sky, each surface a window into infinity, each reflection a moment of perfect stillness captured between earth and heaven. You walk to the terrace's edge, where the view opens across valleys invisible in darkness, yet somehow present in the quality of space that extends beyond sight. The mountain sanctuary perches between earth and sky, a place where human consciousness can expand to encompass both the intimate details of carefully placed stones and the vast mysteries suggested by starlight. Benches carved from single blocks of stone offer places to rest, their surfaces worn to perfect smoothness by weather and time. You settle onto one, feeling the mountain's solid presence beneath you, the night's vast openness above, your own being suspended perfectly between these two eternities. The moon moves with imperceptible slowness across constellations that wheel overhead in patterns older than memory. Stars emerge and fade as clouds drift across their brightness, creating a constantly changing display of celestial beauty that requires nothing from you but presence. Nothing but this quiet witnessing of universal harmonies playing themselves out in light and darkness. Night sounds drift up from the gardens below, the soft stirring of leaves in gentle breezes, the occasional splash of water finding new channels through stone, the distant call of some night bird settling into roost. These sounds create a symphony of peace, each note perfectly placed in the larger composition of stillness that defines this elevated sanctuary. Time takes on different qualities here under open sky, expanding and contracting with the rhythm of your own breathing, your own heartbeat, your own gradual settling into this space where contemplation becomes as natural as drawing breath. The boundary between self and surroundings dissolves in moonlight that makes everything luminous, everything connected, everything part of one seamless whole. The terraced gardens below seem to breathe with their own life, plants and stone and water existing in perfect balance, each element supporting the others in relationships too subtle for analysis, yet immediately apparent to direct experience. This is design that serves not display but harmony, beauty that exists not for its own sake but as natural expression of deeper principles. You remain here as moonlight slowly shifts across stone surfaces, creating new patterns of light and shadow, revealing details that emerge and recede according to celestial rhythms beyond human control, yet somehow in perfect alignment with human need for beauty, for peace, for spaces where consciousness can expand beyond its ordinary boundaries. The night holds you gently in its vast embrace. The mountain supports you with infinite solidity. The gardens below offer their quiet testimony to the possibility of harmony between intention and acceptance, between effort and surrender, between human creativity and natural flow. Chapter 9. The Deepest Chambers, Time's Embrace. The path continues inward, leading you deeper into the mountain's heart where stone corridors narrow and widen according to ancient rhythms, where each step carries you further from the familiar world and closer to something timeless, something that exists beyond the reach of ordinary hours. You move through passages that seem carved, not by human hands alone, but by time itself, each surface smooth and worn, bearing the gentle marks of countless seasons, countless nights like this one when solitary figures walked these same stones, seeking the same quiet that draws you forward now. The air here holds a different quality, cooler and more still, carrying hints of mineral depths and distant water, the breath of the mountain itself flowing through these chambers that have known centuries of silence, centuries of patient waiting for moments exactly like this one. Your footsteps echo softly in the narrow space, each sound absorbed quickly by stone walls that seem to understand the need for gentleness, for sounds that soothe rather than disturb, for acoustics designed not for grand pronouncements, but for whispered prayers, for quiet thoughts, for the kind of communication that happens between human consciousness and ancient stone. The walls here bear carvings different from those above, simpler and somehow more profound, symbols that seem to emerge from the stone itself, rather than being imposed upon it, patterns that follow natural lines and curves, designs that feel less like decoration and more like revelations of truths already present in the rock. You pause to trace these carved lines with your fingertips, feeling the smoothness where countless other hands have followed the same paths, worn these same grooves deeper through repetitive touch, through the human need to connect with permanence, with something that endures beyond the brief span of individual lives. The corridor opens into a chamber smaller than those above, more intimate, its proportions creating a sense of enclosure that feels protective rather than confining, a space that wraps around you like cupped hands, holding you gently in its stone embrace, while the world outside continues its endless turning. Here the ceiling is lower, close enough that you could reach up and touch it if you wished, its surface carved with spiraling patterns that seem to draw the eye inward and upward simultaneously, creating a sense of movement within perfect stillness, of journey within arrival. A single shaft of moonlight enters through an opening so small it might have been placed by accident, yet its position creates exactly the illumination needed, a soft pool of silver light in the chamber's center that seems to pulse gently with the rhythm of night itself, expanding and contracting with clouds passing across the moon's face. You stand at the edge of this light, feeling its cool touch on your skin, aware of how it transforms the chamber around you, creating new depths in the carved walls, new shadows that seem to hold their own quiet stories, their own patient wisdom accumulated through years of witnessing moments exactly like this one. The silence here is complete, yet full, containing within itself the distant memory of chanted prayers, of whispered contemplations, of all the human voices that have sought comfort in these depths, all now blended into a quiet that speaks more eloquently than any words could manage. This is the mountain's deepest offering, this chamber where time seems to pool like still water, where past and present dissolve into something larger, something that contains both individual moments and eternal duration, both the specific weight of this night and the boundless expanse of all nights, all moments of seeking, all instances of finding peace within ancient stone. You sink slowly to the floor, feeling the cool stone through your clothing, its solid presence supporting you completely as you settle into stillness, into the kind of rest that comes not from exhaustion but from arrival, from reaching the place where journey transforms into simple being, where questions fade into acceptance, where the seeking mind gives way to peaceful presence. The carved walls seem to breathe around you, their patterns shifting subtly in the moving moonlight, creating an environment that feels alive yet utterly calm, ancient yet eternally present, holding you in its timeless embrace as consciousness itself begins to soften, to merge with the greater stillness that permeates these depths. Chapter 10. The Chamber of Sleep. Your breathing deepens here, each exhalation releasing something you no longer need to carry, each inhalation drawing in the ancient peace that saturates these stones, this timeless air that has held countless moments of rest, countless arrivals at the place where seeking ends and simple presence begins. The moonlight continues its slow dance across the carved walls, patterns shifting like gentle thoughts across a quiet mind, shadows moving with the rhythm of your slowing breath, creating a visual lullaby that speaks to something deeper than sight, deeper than the need to understand or grasp or hold on to any particular moment. Your body settles more completely into the stone floor, feeling how perfectly it supports you, how the mountain itself becomes your resting place, your foundation for this descent into deeper stillness, into the kind of sleep that comes not from tiredness but from completion, from arriving exactly where you belong in this moment. The silence deepens around you, not empty but full, carrying within it the whispered echoes of all who have found rest in these depths, all who have discovered that peace is not something to be achieved, but something to be recognized, something that was always here, waiting beneath the surface of seeking, beneath the movement of thought and time. Your consciousness begins to merge with this greater stillness, boundaries softening like mist in moonlight, individual awareness dissolving into something vast and welcoming, something that holds you completely as you sink deeper into rest, deeper into the mountain's ancient embrace, deeper into sleep itself.